Hello and a warm welcome once again to Breathe Sport Live. Delighted to have you with us. Last week, of course, if you were with us, the agenda was football and a review of the season just ending. Tonight, I'm delighted to say we turn our attention to cricket with an Ashes summer almost upon us. The first test, about a month away in Cardiff, and who better to talk Ashes and cricket with than the four gentlemen on my left. Let me introduce you to our combatants this evening. First and foremost, perhaps, Kevin Pietersen, no stranger to an Ashes series with an average against the Aussies the right side of 50. Welcome, Kevin. I'm sure one or two things to say. Next to Kevin, an Aussie, our token Aussie, Marcus North. No token, in fact, with 2 Ashes centuries to his name in recent years. A resident on this side of the water for the last 18 months, so maybe divided loyalties this summer. I somehow doubt it, but we'll find that out over the next hour. Michael Vaughan, of course, many of you will know and hear regularly on the cricketing circuit, and of course, captain of that famous 2005 Ashes winning side. Great memories. We'll perhaps touch on some of those. And Darren Gough, no less, with, amongst his other achievements, a hat-trick, I think, at the SCG in an Ashes test back in 99.
99.
Yeah.
3 and 3, SCG.
3 and 3. He's done it before. He's done it before. Welcome, one and all. Lots and lots to talk about. Of course, we have your questions, many of them you've been posting on Breathe Sport over the last few days. We'll get as many of those in as we can, but there's lots to debate. So let's get started. And where better to start than with the news of the day, really, in cricketing terms. Topically, today of all days, Matt Prior's decided to call it a day, perhaps injury and age catching up with the England batsman and wicket keeper. Now, who should I talk to about Matt first? Maybe Michael. Maybe Michael as the diplomat amongst the panel.
It was cued straight to Kevin, really. I mean, it's always sad when you see a player leave the game. I still, would have watched and thought that he'd had 2 or 3 years left in him if he'd stayed fit. But what he produced for England in that period of 2008 to 2012, the energiser at number 7. Every time he arrived at the crease, he would cause chaos for the opposing captain, come out and attack. It was almost like the Gilchrist of the England team of that era. And his keeping got better. I remember, I think it was me actually, dropped him in 2007. He dropped something like 12 catches in Gaul on a trip to Sri Lanka. He just couldn't get down to his right, to Ryan Sidebottom's left armers. And there was a time then that he was thinking about quitting wicket-keeping and just becoming a batsman. And then someone had a word in his ear, I think, and said, no, pull your finger out, go and work a bit harder. And with brute French, he arrived back on the international scene about 6 months later and worked as hard as any wicket-keeper for a 3 or 4 year period and produced some real consistently with the gloves as well. So sad to see him go, but he's had a tremendous career.
Why is he gone? Do we know?
I think the others will know better than me. Was it his injury? Just
Achilles injury. Yeah. He said he couldn't get back to his best, and the big cheese has got his cycling team now, hasn't he? So it's perfect for him. He was a fantastic player. I think what you said there, Michael, I mean, he was in era. There's Fozzie and him and Chris Reed. 3. He was probably the worst gloveman of the 3. But what a player he was. I mean, you just got to remember, Matt Prior now is when you realise he averaged over 40, batting at number 7 for a wicket-keeper. We would been crying out for someone to go in at number 7. We used to have Alex Stewart, but he used to bat anyway, but sometimes about 1, sometimes about 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7. But with Matt Prior, you knew he was going to go in at number 7, and to average 40, it was what England had been missing. I think that was the final piece in the jigsaw. I know they had success in 2005, but they needed to go on from that then. And I think he fit that bill perfectly, Matt. I think he'll be disappointed, and if he was on here now, he'd be the first one to admit. I thought he'd go on and be an absolutely superb one-day cricketer for England. I thought that was his biggest talent. And he kind of underachieved in that, didn't he, in the one-day game?
Never find his tempo.
Yeah,
I couldn't find my tempo either in one-day cricket. I think I went too hard. In an era now where we're telling everyone to go too hard, I think back in the 10 years ago, you used to be able to give yourself a bit of time. It was a different game. I went too hard, so did Prior. He won 3 Ashes series. 3 Ashes series is a great achievement. So I hope he has success with whatever he does, whether he's on a bike or whether he's behind a mic or whether he's in business. But he's been a really good player.
You two have exchanged pleasantries today, haven't you, on social media? I know you've said yourself you had differences, but you've wished him all the best, and I think he's replied in kind, hasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. I found out this evening he did. I was on the golf course all day today.
Well, busy lives.
But yeah, I mean, he did. He played brilliant cricket for a good side, and yeah, I didn't know why he'd gone. And if it's injuries and stuff, then obviously you don't like to see people leaving the game through injuries. And yeah, it's a pity. I think he played 70, 80 Test matches. I know he probably would have loved to have played 100 Test matches to tick that box, but we can't have everything we want in life. So yeah, it's just a case of looking forward, and the same thing I'm doing. Just you look forward, and a couple of doors close, a few more open.
Yeah, good point. We'll get to that. Michael mentioned, Marcus, that he was perhaps England's version of Adam Gilchrist. Was that role, do you think, of the wicketkeeper batsman remodelled by Gilly and then perhaps taken up by the likes of Matt?
Yeah, look, Gilly was definitely one of those blokes that changed the game for wicketkeepers, made it a lot tougher for them. But from when I played against Pryor in the Ashes, he was always one that we would focus in the team meeting. He was a guy that had a great ability to counter-attack and played some of his best innings at times when the team needed him. So, yeah, look, he was a guy that was feared, I think, in international cricket at times, coming in at 7. And what Goughy said, a guy that averaged 40 plus, doesn't matter where you bat in Test cricket, is a fine effort. And yeah, look, I think he's being missed. He would be missed as a player in that generation. But England are very fortunate; they've got a bloke in Jos Butler who could be anything.
It's actually funny if you look, through our time. No disrespect to the wicketkeeper batsmen, Geraint Jones, Chris Reid in our time playing. Then Matt Pryor came, he took it on another level. I think Butler's going to take it again to a different stage. I really do think in Jos Butler, England have got a superstar. We're very kind of polite in it. Oh, I don't want to big him up too much because it might put him under too much pressure. I think he thrives on pressure. Every time he goes to the wicket and the pressure's on, he delivers. He's just got that kind of mentality.
Could he be one of them, though, Mike, who might eventually say, do you know something, I don't want to keep anymore, I just want to play as a batsman? Because he's got that enormous talent, whether it be Test cricket, whether it be one-day cricket. Would England get the best out of him if they said, no, just be a batsman, bat 5. Once we have a couple more who drop out at retirement, say Belly goes, KP's not going to get back in now, so we get somebody who comes in at number 5. Would Butler be better off there? You could bring them Bairstow even in, who's a top-class player, and he's good behind the stumps.
Yeah, I think it's going well from at the minute. I don't think they need to change it, but I think with Sam Billings can keep wicket as well. There'll be periods where they might be able to rest someone from the keeping position if it's putting too much strain on the batting. I do see Butler as a player that could bat anywhere. Probably not open, probably not number 3. But you could certainly use him at 4, 5, 6 and 7 in any of the formats, T20, 50 overs and Test matches, depending on the situation of the game. You sometimes see players, he had it on the end, they have a wow touch, they had this kind of ability just to make good bowlers look very, very average, and Butler has that.
Interesting. Options. And as you all know, certainly 3 of you have experienced English cricket, tends to be a bit of a roller coaster. It's either very much on the up, or it's on the slide and it's a nightmare. Now, we've got 2 Yorkshiremen on the panel, a third, who has his view on most things, Mr. Boycott, talked recently of Yorkshire beating England and having a better selection of players to pick from than the national side. Michael, you kind of backed that up, I think, on Breathe, with the idea that not only could Yorkshire beat England, but they'd probably do it in 3 days whilst smoking cigars, I think was the quote, wasn't it?
Well, look, everything Boyk says, you kind of take it and he makes some really good points, but then he goes a little bit beyond. And I think in this respect, if you actually look at, let's go through the teams.
Yep.
Let's pick a Yorkshire team, and I go Lyth, Alex Lees, Balance, Root, Johnny Bairstow, the skipper Andrew Gale at 6, Rashid at 7, Bresnan at 8, Plunkett at 9, Jack Brooks at 10, Ryan Sidebottom at 11.
So no overseas?
No overseas. Yorkshire team, pretty much all born there. I would say that they would give England a very, very good game of cricket. No question. Whether they'd win, I'm not too sure. Certainly not in 3 days like I suggested on Breathe, but they would give England...
cigars.
yeah, they'd have maybe the odd cigarette. But they would definitely give England a game of cricket. No question.
Hang on then, isn't it? He's having a year and a couple of weeks.
Did you actually see? Yeah. It would have been an England team what were picked by the selectors for the World Cup, but it wouldn't pick a team what were put out the other night against New Zealand and put in that sort of performance. With that mindset.
Would be in the Yorkshire team.
Oh, would he? So yeah, Yorkshire takes
preference
over England?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Yorkshire team.
So you can pick who you want and then England get the rest.
Yorkshire's Yorkshire. So Joe Root plays for Yorkshire, Balance plays for Yorkshire, Lyth plays for Yorkshire, Rashid plays for Yorkshire. Who's going to, it'd be a good game. It really would be a close contest.
I think if you go through some of the other counties, you said they'd give England a good game. We used to play England versus the counties. No, we would do. I've seen it. I've played in the England versus the counties.
Well, let's pick an England team without the Yorkies in it. You go Cook at the top. Who's going to open with Hales? Halesy. Who's going to go 3?
Bell
to 3.
Jason Roy at 4.
Jason Roy at 4. Not Taylor.
No. Jason Roy at
Hang
4.
on, you
Hang on,
can't
you-
just pick your mates in there, Kevin.
No,
Jason Roy at 4.
I was going to say you could put yourself back in. All the bets are off here. You can
pick
play.
yourself.
No, he's been blackballed. He's not allowed to play.
All right, okay.
Not allowed to
Well,
play
he's
again.
dropped you. I picked you. He's dropped you.
Yeah, go on then. Number 4.
Roy 4.
All right, you go, Roy.
5.
Bell.
No, Bell's 3.
Bell's 3.
Butler.
Butler at 5.
Butler at 5. Spinners, Ali. 6, Ali. Stokes 7. Then you've got the bowlers, Anderson, Broad,
Wood.
Jordan. There's your team.
Overton.
The
You've got
bowling
loads.
attack's better.
Yeah.
The bowling attack's better. I'd say the Yorkshire batting lineup's as strong.
Yeah.
I would, yeah.
Okay.
So
We've done
England,
your
we
version
got
of
that,
England.
right?
No,
yeah?
no.
We got that then. England.
You're not buying it,
probably
Kev?
beaten-
No, I'm not buying the Yorkshire's batting lineup being better or as good. You've got Cook at the top. He's got 9,000 runs by the age of 30.
It's as good. You got Roots in that middle order, balance in the middle order. Johnny Bairstow, he's gone 6 innings this year. He's got 450s, 2 centuries. Little Rash coming in at 7.
He's got the stats to back it.
But does that tell you? Does that tell you more about county cricket than it does international cricket?
It could do, yeah.
You've seen a lot more of it than I've done over the last few years. But does that tell you more about county cricket than it does about international cricket?
All it's saying is Yorkshire is strong. New South Wales. for
Yorkshire
20
had a strong side.
Yeah, New South Wales.
don't
You
beat
could have
them.
the same argument over 20 years that they've had half the Test team.
Well, 7 of them.
7, yeah. So
that's true.
you could have the same argument there.
But
It'd
there'd
be a
only
tight-
be
it'd
two.
be a tight
There'd only be
game.
2 or 3. So Rashid, Balance, Root.
Yeah, live.
Oh, and live 4, right.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to that perhaps in due course. Glenn McGrath's had a word on the Ashes. He generally does. He as in my experience, always suggests a 5-0 scoreline. And actually, last time he was right. Last time he was right. He's gone for it again. Marcus, is that just shooting from the hip or what?
That's just being pigeon, I think. I think, when you guys beat us 3-0 a couple of series ago, I'm sure he said 5-0 there. He just does it for a bit of a laugh. But maybe this time around, he's probably got more chance of it actually happening.
Oh, here we go. Just let the blue touch paper, Kevin.
Do you really think it could be?
5-0 could be. My prediction is going to be 3-1. But the very limited experience I had in the Ashes, 2009, when there was a Test match that we should have won, hands down. Anderson, Cardiff, Anderson and Panesar batted out for 14 or 15 overs. Yeah. That was like a win for you guys. We walked away distraught. Yeah. Went to Lords in a few days and we got our pants pulled down. Before you know it, you guys won the toss, 140 at lunch, day one. And we were really struggling. So the first test in an Ashes is so important. So come down to Cardiff. If Australia are dominant and they win that comfortably, I think England could be really pushing against it.
Yep.
How do you see it?
Well, I mean, I don't think that it's going to be an absolute drubbing. I do think that it's going to be a very tough series. I do think that the Aussies have got a lot more depth than England have got. I think their bowling attack, you've got 2 guys who are still in Australia, bowl 150 kilometres per hour. If Anderson goes down, we're going to have big issues. But I do think that the England lads will pick themselves up. A guy like Broad, who I don't think is at his best at the moment. I think that the Ashes series, he could turn himself around and get himself up for an Ashes series. I think as an Englishman you get judged, or as an Aussie you get judged on all the cricket you score against, or the runs or wickets you score against Australia, or vice versa. So these guys know that this is where they'll be judged. It's a big summer. I'm a 2-1 man because I think the way that England played the other night will give them a hell of a lot of positivity in terms of how they want to go and play their cricket for the rest of the summer, and what the fans want, and how people are probably going to let them off a little bit of a slip-up. And if they go out there and they play that way, then they'll put the Aussies under pressure, because there's no bowler, no matter if you're bowling at 90 mile an hour, 80 mile an hour, 75 mile, if somebody's going at you and whacking you, and through my experiences, go in at a bowler who's probably their best bowler, I mean, it puts them under a lot of pressure. So if our guys can go and they can whack the ball like they did the other night, which they've proved they can, then I think they could cause the Aussies some sort of an issue. I think we'll definitely win one Test match. I think the Australians will win the series, but I think it'll be a lot tighter than people think.
Interesting. What about that idea from Marcus and Kevin to an extent that the start's crucial in Cardiff, Goughy?
Well, it is. Am I the only one here who lost every Ashes series he played in? I've played in a couple of Ashes series. The first over, my debut season, 94 for England, Phil de Freitas went for 16 the first over. So me being me, I took the responsibility when they came over to England 97. I went for 17, I went one better. And so we know with Australia, when he talks there about the way you're going to play, Australia have people they target. And parts of the game they will target, where they're just going to dominate, change the momentum. So if England look to try and get it on top, Australia won't just fight it out. They'll change the momentum, and they'll just try and attack. They'll pick one ball and they'll attack it. And when he talks there, Jimmy Anderson is such a vital player. Unfortunately for us, his record against Australia is probably his weakest out of all the countries he's played against. I think he's, off the top of my head, he's around 37, 38 mark. And for a bowler of his capabilities, you would be expecting him to be around the 31, wouldn't you? 32 against Australia, because they are better than anyone else. So he needs to have a top series. I think this rest will do him good. Stuart Broad, KP was right. He's not at his best, but I still think he's the big factor for me. If we're going to do well in the Ashes, he's a strike bowler. He gets up for the big games, and he's like all-rounders. Can we still call him an all-rounder? They get up for those big tournaments. You'll have to think Flintoff in 2005 when Vaughan was captain. The one concern I've got is with our bowling, and we'll probably get onto that later, is we've got Wood, who I'm a massive fan of. I really like him. He's quick, he's aggressive, he goes to try and take wickets. You've got Stokes, talent. His batting stands up for itself. Bowling, still got a bit of work to do. Needs to get a bit more control, but he wants wickets. He wants to be in the game all the time. So that's 2 strike bowlers. And then if we pick someone like Rashid as a spinner, another one who wants to be taking wickets, trying to take wickets all the time, we've got 3 bowlers there who could be going at 6 and over, with Broad not at his best. That's my biggest concern, and we're going to have to be careful what sort of bowling lineup we pick going into the Ashes. That's my biggest concern of the whole series.
See, I guess what this week, albeit in a different format, Michael, has suddenly given England fans the sense is optimism, obviously, from the nature of the win the other night, and we'll get more clues tomorrow, but the options that perhaps the selectors have that didn't necessarily appear to be there only, a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, one-day cricket is different, but I look back to that Test match at Lord's, and it's the first time in many, many years that I would walk out the gates every night just proud to have watched the team. You know, really delighted with the way that they attacked, you know, in tricky situations, 30 for 4 on that first day. Suddenly you got Root and Ben Stokes coming out and playing aggressively, but it wasn't reckless. It was just those 2 players backing their own talent, you know, backing their own eyes and backing their own game plan in their own hands and playing strokes, trying to put the opposing captain under chaos. And I think against a team like Australia, when you bat, you really do have to look at Clarke. You know, you have to look at what he's trying to create, and he'll try and play the bluff card, he'll try and play the 4 slips, he'll put people in funny positions. And the clever and the hard players will go, I'm not bothered about that. I'll whack it past you. Not bothered about those 4 slips. They're there just to watch me play. You know, those guys that have that mentality to take Australia on that way, I think will have a huge amount of success. The bowlers, when they get the ball in hand, I agree with Gough, they'll travel. When you're playing the likes of Clarke, Smith, Warner, Haddon coming at 7, they will attack. So they're going to take you for runs. So what the captain has to think is, right, all right, we might go for runs. We might block up the odd boundary scoring shot. So Warner, you know he's going to crack you through the offside. Put a man out. But also have 5, 6 catches. Don't be worried about that boundary. Stick a man out there and just say, right, we'll have 5 or 6 catches. Bowl your best ball as many times as you possibly can. Your best ball to Warner's on and around off stump, full of length. If he drives you a few times, you just stick your hand up as a bowler and as a team go, well played. But on the English conditions, the odd ball will nip, he'll keep driving, you'll get a chance. And it always comes down to, you know, when you look at Ashes series, I mean, I don't think it'll be 5 now. I just don't think it's possible in England. You look back to the 90s when the Aussies were probably at their best. They never beat England 5-0. No. You know, 2000s early when they were at their best, they never beat England 5-0 in English conditions. You know, the Ashes can sometimes come down to catching, you know, the cordon, taking your chances. And the series against New Zealand, it was a real concern to me because the cordon's not right. It isn't right. It's a bit tight because they're protecting each other. The best cordon's spread out, and I'm the worst catcher, certainly in this sport and probably in English cricket. So but I can see a good cordon when I see one. The Aussies are very good. They spread, and they just go for the.
Is that about trust?
It's trust, and also if you're hiding people, they all leave it to each other, and then they kind of don't want to go for the ball because they're scared of dropping it. You know, I've been a big kind of advocate. If you've got someone like Adam Lyth, he's a brilliant second slipper. He should be in second slip for England. Ian Bell is the best short leg I think England have ever had. Yeah. You know, you go back to Judge in the 90s, he was pretty good. But Ian Bell is out. Put him at short leg. You're not playing Tom Noddy cricket. You're not playing in the pub 11 on a Saturday where you just spread it. Oh, youngster gets a short. You're playing for England in Ashes series. Ian Bell should be at short leg. Adam Lyth should be at second slip.
You know it doesn't work that way, though.
But it has to. If England want to be successful.
Why doesn't it work that way?
It just doesn't. There's just a seniority in every single side that you go and play for, and you know that Lyth has been chucked under the helmet there. And I think it's identified here that there is. And I think now that the issue's been identified, it will it will change. And I think Bell, you'll probably see under the lid. And
the catches are so... If you're going to give Warner a chance...
You've got to catch him.
And you know with Warner, his blade's going to be going hard. It's going to be going fast, so you're going to get a sharp chance. So you're going to have to be good in that corner, so at least make sure you've got your best catches in that position.
Well, you've caught in the slips today. So that is the position where they're going to go. You're playing in the Test match against Australia. He was caught slip. Yeah, wanted a big drive. It was more of a shorter ball, but he was caught in the slip. That's where you're going to get him out. If you were balling to him, you'd look to just go across him, wouldn't you? Well, if you try and get back him LBW early on, but if you don't, you're going to go across him because he loves to drive. He goes full bifter at it.
And I think when you play the Aussies, you always know that they've got one school of thought when they go out to bat, and that is to try and dominate the ball. They might give you an over or two of leaving and just having a look. But the school of thought, and they're all brought up with it, is that they're very hard with their hands and they just attack. And if there's a length ball, they'll go, right, I'll drive it. You know, England are smart and clever and just hold into length long enough, and there will be a bit of movement around with the Duke ball. Even on a flat day in Cardiff, there'll be the odd ball that'll just do a little bit. If you hold length long enough against Australia and brave enough to do so, and don't go shy, I've been driven a couple of times, I'm going to go a bit shorter, because what they do then is they pull you off your length.
Is that what we did at Edinley, though?
Absolutely did.
If you was there, I mean, I played at Edinley, you played at Edinley as a batsman, I played as a bowler. And all you have to do, like I say, you put the ball, you hit the pitch hard, just back of a length, consistently, you're going to get them driving at you, and they're going to get the nicks at some point in the day. 4 for 20, what was it? 4 for 40 off 25. Steve Oldham, one of our coaches, used to say all the time. I never got that, by the way, but it wasn't my type of bowling. But our bowling at Edinley, we would have too short or too full.
I mean, I do think now for a couple of years, every time England have played against a dominating batting lineup, a batting lineup that you know are going to come at you, I always feel with them that they go safe into length too soon. They go a little bit short to try and get a dot or two into the bank, into the kind of the figures of their own bowling. You've got, even if it means just taking one of your slips out and going a bit straighter and saying, right, just go top of off, just continuously bowl into that length and get them coming forward, because the Aussies will climb all over you if you suddenly start going short. They all play the cross-batted shot so well. You've got to play Australian players play with a straight bat. And if you're doing that, they might play well for a few hours. Hold your hands up, but keep staying in there. And to keep playing with a straight bat, you'll get the opportunities with the odd ball that moves around to take your chance.
Let's talk about the other end of the equation, the English batting. Alastair Cook's had, in a different way, equally tumultuous couple of months to yourself, but you've talked on Breathe about him having the chance to possibly surpass even Sachin Tendulkar's all-time Test run record. So you obviously feel he's still got an awful lot to offer.
Absolutely right. I mean, I said it on Breathe that you're not a clown if you're sitting at 9,000 Test runs and you're 30 years of age. I mean, he can bat and bat and bat for as long as he can. His back's obviously an issue. I know that his back's an issue. So, I mean, he can go on and just score as many. I mean, if he bats to 35 or 36 years of age, which he should do, he's a very, very fit guy. His back obviously is a little issue there. Oh, goodness, what, you're scoring 1,000 runs a year. How many Test matches? You're scoring 12, 15 Test matches the guys are playing a year. Scoring 1,000 runs. I mean, he's up to 15,000 there already. And Sachin's where? Sachin's 15,500. So, I mean, that's at the age of 35, 36, 37, 38. I mean, Sachin played till he was 40. So I don't think it was a daft comment. I know a lot of people didn't think it was a wise comment because it was Sachin. But at the end of the day, you look at his numbers, you look at his age, and you think the projections in terms of what he scored and how quickly he scored his runs over the last 3, 4, 5 years. I know he's had a little bit of a blip here in the last 18 months, but I think that was because of one-day cricket, playing too much one-day cricket, trying to force the issue, trying to drive, got himself into bad positions, lost his off-stump. The way he played against New Zealand, where Bolton Southey bowling beautiful deliveries, he knew where his off-stump was. He's leaving the ball. He played the way Alastair Cook played that scored him all those runs.
Marcus, is he still the key wicket for the Aussies?
Yeah, I think there's a trend. Yeah, I think KP, you just said that he knows he's off stump now.
Yep.
And that's where the Aussies would be targeting him. They still will. They'll still try and get him driving, fending out there. But I think if my memory's right, before the Ashes back in 10, 11, when he broke all those records and smashed them, you know, he had a little bit of a tough time, I think. I think he got 100 against Pakistan in that last test match, and there was a lot of talk about him being dropped. He might miss the Ashes. But he found that form and he came in really hungry and he dominated. And he's just the same kind of pattern's happening now.
The only thing is, Ryan Harris started his issue in 2013. Darren Lehmann, Michael Clarke and Ryan Harris put together a plan, and it was incredibly successful, and it hurt him for 18 months. That could be his issue this summer. I don't want it to be his issue, but Ryan Harris, people talk about Mitchell Johnson's pace, Mitchell Stark's swing and how fast he is. I promise you now, played the guy over the last 3 or 4 years. He is a machine, that bloke. He is one of the best bowlers I've ever faced.
Is he going to be right for the Aussies? I don't think he's involved in this Test match.
His wife's they're having a baby now, middle of June.
Wrapping him in cotton wool.
Yeah.
And they know how important he is. But you know, if you look back to 10-11 when he scored over he wasn't in the one-day team. And then he started off in the one-day team. He did pretty well. You opened the batting with him in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and scored some nice runs. He had a good time. And then he almost tried to prove to everyone that he was a really good one-day player. And he went chasing the balls on channel, and that right foot was going too far over. And then all of a sudden he went back to the Test game. And it's so difficult for the lads these days who, don't have a natural kind of technique that will work in the Test format in the 2020s and the 50s.
Well, when you play a different way in the formats, then your mind goes all over the place.
And it's very difficult. So he had to change his technique to try and accommodate himself in the 50-over team, and that really screwed him up in Test cricket because that ball that was coming back was his issue. And then all of a sudden that ball on 4th and 5th stump, because that foot was too far ahead, he was playing with half a bat. And now he's not playing one-day cricket. It's not the silliest thing in the world to think that he could surpass Sachin Tendulkar. He's 30 years of age. 30 years old, and he's playing in the last 5 matches in the West Indies and against New Zealand as well as I've ever seen him play.
Really?
The New Zealand attack's quality, and it was swinging around. It wasn't going straight for that many deliveries. It was always something in the air. And I always look at Alastair and think, if he can play a solid forward defensive on-off stump to a ball early in his innings, to a Southie or a Bolt, his balance is excellent, his movement's terrific, and he did it so consistently. So his technique was looking after the best balls. If he takes that into the Ashes, what the Ashes brings is mental, though, strain. As a captain opening the batting in the big Ashes series, Cardiff is so big for him because if the team don't have a good time in Cardiff and he doesn't have a good time, everything builds up and it's very difficult to drag it back as a skipper. So he has to start well and the team have to start
Conversely, obviously, if it goes well as a batter, as a captain, it gets easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I think he is a top player, Alastair Cook. I've known him since he was 15. I saw him at Essex. Fantastic player. Same player now as he was then. His technique then was probably better than it's been that last 18 months until you've seen him getting runs of late. His big test, the ball's going to be coming down 10 miles an hour quicker, and these guys are accurate. You just mentioned Harris and Stark. They don't bowl many bad balls. Johnson's the only one what might give you a few early on. But I just don't know with Alastair whether he'll survive another bad series. He's had that bad run 18 months, and now he's been done really well in the West Indies and against New Zealand. As you're saying, the captain is only as good as his team, really. And if he doesn't get off to a good start, and England don't, I can tell you now what will happen. The media will be straight on Alastair Cook back again. He has to score runs this summer.
His difficulty will be he'll lose the captaincy.
Yeah.
Whether it's this summer, if it goes wrong. If it goes right, he might lose it. He might go, that's me done.
Yeah.
So it'll be whether he can mentally play as a player.
Yeah.
Once you've been the captain for 4 or 5 years, can he go back then and just be one of the lads and play? Some people find it very easy. Nasser struggled with it. Others did it very well. I think Gucci did it pretty well as well. Stewie found it quite nice to go back.
Mentality thing, do you think?
Yeah, some players and people, I don't think I would have been able to do it. I didn't get the opportunity. My knee was gone. I was playing terribly, to be honest. And they did the right thing, not even looking at me. But I don't think I'd have been able to do it. I was so used to leading the team and being the spokesperson. I don't know if I'd have been able to do it. I think Cook might be that type of person that can do it. He's such a lovely lad. I think leadership is not something that comes naturally. It might be something that helps him and might even help him go on to surpass Sachin Tendulkar's record. So who knows? That'll be a key period when it does go, how he reacts to that.
Well, we'll get on to who might eventually supplant him in due course. But you've had a couple of things to say on Stuart Broad, haven't you? Some positive, some negative. This was on Breathe. He talked about his bowling, which you say has been stellar of late. But when he's got bat in hand, you say, Broad's little more than a walking wicket.
That's pretty much spot on.
I don't know where the issue is there.
I actually, at Headingley, his batting came back a little bit. It's really difficult when you've been hit on the head. As a top order batsman, we've probably been hit a few times, and it's tough the next time out and the game after. But eventually, as a top order player, you go, right, look, I've been doing this a while. You kind of tell yourself, you've done it, you've got out of the way of many before, just carry on. As a tail ender, when that happens, I think it must be the most difficult thing in the world. And clearly it's had a massive effect. He'll tell you. Him and the likes of Ashley Giles, every time someone was bowling quick, I guarantee Goughy or Jala were next in. It always used to make me chuckle.
I had a flashing light on my head every time I went in. At one point, everybody thought I was going to be this all-rounder. I was never an all-rounder. I was someone who just used to love going in and playing a few shots. And I came off now and again. I scored some runs. County cricket, I scored runs my whole career. Consistently, I average around 24, 25. But when you get to Test cricket, It's a different ball game. Once they find a weakness, I played against Australia, then played against the Windies, then played against South Africa. They had the 3 quickest attacks in world cricket. It destroyed me. Mentally, every time I went in, my feet were just like in super glue. I didn't want to go anywhere except that I ain't going past that white line. If I go past that white line, I'm going to get sconned. And it does, and it has an effect on a tail ender, and that's why we're batting there in the first place. Stuart Broad's a bit better than a tail ender, but he took a massive hit. You watched that hit the time and time again. And obviously, the biggest mistake he made was telling everybody about it. I was amazed by that.
In the winter, I couldn't watch. You know, every time he walked out, I just go, no, I can't watch this. You knew it was only going to be a ball.
Because you could see in his body language.
I could see, yeah, and he was backing away. He played a shot against Southey when Joe Root was 40-odd out of the non-strikers end, 7 down. Backed away and he got caught mid-off. And it was a disgraceful dismissal for a senior player. But you knew what... You kind of think, mentally he must be going through utter turmoil. And then all of a sudden, you know, I think in the New Zealand series that's just been, he has got a little bit back. You know, he started to get in line. And I think the best way that he plays is just go out and swing. I just think he plays better himself when he's just swinging at the ball. As long as he's in a good position in terms of the alignment, and he was against New Zealand, particularly at Headingley, he played 2 really good innings, took them on, you know, got under a few short balls. As soon as it was on force, he just swung his arms at the ball and flayed it over the offside. I think, because he's going to be batting down at 9, you know, potentially 10, you just don't know where they're going to go with the team. I think his best form of attack is just to go out and flay the ball. If he tries to play technically and, you know, try and get in behind all the time, I don't think it's going to have much effect. I think he's that type of player. He's got to take the game.
Well, Barbados, I was in Barbados and watched him there. That was frightening to watch. He was just terrible. He looked worse than Tuffers did when he batted at 11, and that's saying something. But how does he get himself mentally right? He knows against Australia, you guy the batsman, how does he mentally get himself right? Because he knows he's going to get absolutely peppered by bowlers what are a lot quicker than the West Indies bowlers were, and New Zealand.
I feel sorry for him at the moment because you've got guys who are going to turn up here in 3 or 4 weeks' time who bowl 95 miles an hour.
And verbally, they're going to get into him straight away.
I mean, he's going to get absolutely hammered. And that's something that really worries me. It worries me a hell of a lot. And it makes me question his selection on the side.
I would say, if he's looking, you know, forget the pace, but if his mindset is right, I'm looking to score, at least you know he's staring at the ball. Because you're looking to hit the ball. If he's going out thinking, I'm going to duck and weave, I'm going to get... There's a little bit of you that'll take...
He will be though, Mike. As a tail ender now, what he is, he'll be thinking exactly what I would have been thinking. Right, I'm just going to keep my eye on this ball because they're going to bowl at my head.
But he played well against the Kiwis. He got a little bit back.
Mate, this is Tim Southey, Bolt and Henry.
It's not Stark, Johnson, Harris. They're bowling 90, 95 miles an hour.
You know it's different. Absolutely, but his mindset has to be to attack. His mindset can't be to defend the ball.
It's see ball, hit ball. If you don't see the ball, you can't hit the ball.
There's going to be a difference between attacking, Warnie, and bricking it and backing away because it's going to be such a battle, you know, these 2 teams. And if every time England go out, it's going to be a distraction for the England batting lineup and the team. If he goes out there and he's a walking wicket and he's showing no courage, no fight to get behind those Aussie bowlers, they are going to love that.
I think he'll get in line. I really do. I don't think he'll be backing away. I think he's worked something out. I think he's worked hard with fight. I don't think he will back away. I think his odds might go all over the place.
He'll have to nail his feet to crease because I think he will. I think mentally he's shot when he's going to bat. Like I said, when you play against Australia and you had Brett Lee at one end and Glenn McGrath, I used to sit on my bat handle and say, I'll face McGrath all day. He might be the best bowler in the world and get 500 test wickets or whatever he got. Right. But I'll bat against him all day because he's not going to hit me on the head. Brett Lee... He'll give me 4 balls, but he could knock my lights out.
Right, all right, let's go 5 test matches. Will he get over 100 runs? I reckon he'll get over 100
I think
runs.
so. I think number 11 will get over 100 runs. I think Jimmy will get over 100 runs.
No chance. That's a lot of runs. No chance.
10 innings is they'll have.
Yeah. Will he get over 100? You're telling me
Jimmy will get a 30 in the Ashes series. He'll get a 30 plus in the Ashes series.
I reckon Brody will get over 100 runs.
Well, I do. I reckon he'll get over 100 runs. Do we need more than that off him? 5 tests?
That's not a lot of runs.
Depends whether he gets picked.
100 runs.
Which is, in some debate, we'll get to that, but I assume for a start that Jimmy Anderson will be picked if fit and firing. Darren, obviously, let's get a bowler's view on Jimmy and just how important he is.
He's the best new ball bowler I've ever seen. Ever seen.
Is he? Michael agrees.
Any country?
Who I've seen live, the best new ball bowler I have ever seen. And I'll tell you why. When he bowls with a new ball in his hand, having done it myself, how hard it is to run in that first through balls and put it on a line, perfect line and length, swinging in to a left-hander. And then he decides, second ball, I'm just going to see what it looks like going the other way and be so accurate, get the length right, get the line right with very little change in action. I've got videos of him. I shouldn't be saying this because I look like I'm a bit of a creep. But I've watched him and I've had his wrist and I've watched him do it in his outswinger and his inswinger. I'm telling you, you can hardly pick any difference in that. To do that is an amazing natural skill. It is. I used to try and bowl it, and I made it dear Alf me. It was so obvious, and I used to think I'd got a good inswinger. But watching Jimmy bowl, it's just a different ball game. Pollock and McGrath are different bowlers. They back of a length, they hit the seam. Jimmy Anderson is a.
So you reckon he's better than Marshall?
Well, Marshall were pretty good, but Marshall was Marshall's one of my heroes. But Jimmy Anderson, I would say, is more accurate, and the change in action is very little. Malcolm Marshall was quality. Now, if Jimmy would have been bowling in the 70s and 80s, Jimmy would have been my sporting hero. So that's very hard to compare, that bigger gap in age. What I'm talking about is the people I played against. Wazim Akram were pretty good, but he'd give you 4 balls, loads of 4 balls with a new ball. He were better with the old ball. Waqar Yunis were brilliant. He were better with the old ball. England were 100 for none every test match, and then they were 130 all out when them 2 bowled. Glenn McGrath, there were Craig McDermott. There's all these guys who were all quality. Sean Pollock, Alan Donald. But Jimmy Anderson, he's so accurate with that new ball and very little change. This last 4 years, he has been unbelievable. There's no one can lace his boots with a new ball.
One thing that he said there, which is on key, is the ability to swing the ball both ways without too much of a difference in his action. I've faced him in the nets over the last 10 years. And when he's got a new ball in the nets, I promise you it is that difficult to face.
Really?
Because I'm a ball watcher. I only watch the ball. And it's so hard. Him and Zahir Khan, when Zahir Khan bowls his reverse swing, he runs in all the way and he covers the ball all the way. He doesn't give you any look at the ball until he's basically behind. And it's too late. Then you're playing a guessing game. Jimmy's exactly the same with the new ball. You don't get that much of a view. And that's what makes him so special.
He's going to be such a key because Rogers hasn't played the last 2 tests, so they've had Marsh at the top. Warner's missed out against the West Indies. He's got 1 more innings. If they can get it to swing, the ball doesn't swing in Australia, domestic cricket, or in Test match cricket. That kookaburras don't swing. Swings a little bit. If you get conditions where it swings in England, the Aussie batters will struggle. And especially with their technique, they like
Steve Smith.
Talking.
And Clark.
Steve Smith is a great batsman over the last 18 months. Now, I watched him closely in the World Cup. His technique, some of the balls were bowling him, his leg stumps were getting knocked out. Now, on a wicket that seams, that swings, this is a big summer for Steve Smith. Huge summer for him because they're talking about he's the golden boy and he scored all these runs, but his technique is going to get tested in England.
Steve Smith, I'd go a similar tactic that Australia used to Jonathan Trott. Jonathan Trott was getting so far they went straight at him and pat the leg side. I'd do exactly the same to Steve Smith. I'd go straight at leg stump. As soon as he comes in, I'd have a short leg, man at square leg, man catching behind on the leg side for that flick, mid on a bit wider and go dead straight in. Don't bowl into channel. He's waiting for you to bowl into channel. He's actually got really good hands through the offside. Just go Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, just go straight on middle stump. And I reckon you'll get him LB. He flicks it in the air on the onside consistently. If he gets in, well, he's really dangerous. But early on in his innings, he does play across that front pad.
Marcus, talk to me about Josh Hazlewood. Is he...
Star.
He's the real deal.
Is he?
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the Aussie bowlers coming over. He's the one for me.
Is he?
Yeah. I think
even in that company?
Even in that company.
He's going to be on the subs bench, though, isn't he?
I'm not sure about that. He'll play. There's no way that Harris will play more than 2 games in a row. Hasn't done for most of his career. So with the depth the Aussies have got, they're going to rotate their bowlers to a degree. Hazlewood bowled really well in that first test in the West Indies on a dry, flat wicket. So did Stark, mind you. But Hazlewood is the closest that's come out of this kind of McGrath mould. He's tall. He doesn't swing a lot, swings it enough, but he just hits that great area, nips them both ways. To me, he's
what pace is
he? Heavy ball.
Late
heavy
80s.
Ball. Late 80s. Yeah. He is the one in
He's a tall
English
guy,
conditions.
strong guy, so when he hits your bat, I mean,
I remember him making his debut, actually, in the one-day team at Southampton
That's
years
right,
ago, and then he went missing for a couple of years.
Got injured. He had a few back injuries, a few niggles.
He's okay.
But he's good now, yeah.
These guys have got Cummins and they've got Pattinson. I don't even know if they're here. They were 150. I faced them in the Big Bash in the winter. They bowl a heavy ball too.
Quick enough.
They'll be watching on TV unless somebody gets injured.
Yeah,
and that's the big issue we got.
That's a concern. I mean, you mentioned Jimmy. He's outstanding. I wouldn't put him as the best. I'd have him as the best of England, but not of the world. Dale Steyn, for me, is the best by a country mile. But I do think in Australia, that stock of bowlers, as you say, Ryan Harris, I bet Lehman's now, he knows all the grounds, doesn't he? He knows exactly what's going to be. Yeah. And he'll be kind of looking in. Harris, OK, we'll have a bit, because Lords is nipping around a bit. Harry, he'll probably start with Harris at Cardiff, or he'll be looking to Lords, and then he'll be looking at somewhere like Trent Bridge, where he's got the ability to swing around. Harris will be in for that. Anything that's flat, he'll just go with all his pace. Just fly out all the quick merchants. So he's got so many options and so many angle changes with the left arm options, with the tall guy Hazelwood, skiddier options as well in Harris. They've got the perfect lineup.
Do you think Johnson will start? Do you think Hazelwood will play ahead of Johnson, or do you think Johnson will start just purely because of what he did to us 18 months ago?
Well, there is that psychological that he has, the edge. But for me, as you'll see in my team, I didn't pick Johnson in.
OK.
I think Stark, English conditions, you want to be bowling full and swinging.
But reverse swing's a factor in England as well. Yeah. I think Johnson, you had to watch him in the West Indies last week in the first test. He was the best reverse swing bowler.
Johnson was?
Stark got 4 for it. But Stark's shown in one-day cricket, reverse swing going around the wicket. So I think he's just...
Stark will have that moment. Johnson had that period, didn't he, where he suddenly exploded in Test cricket. Blew England away, blew every team away, South Africa away from home. And I think Stark will have that moment. Hopefully not this summer, but he will have that. He'll have that period of 8 to 10 games where he'll click, he'll get the ball swinging, he'll be bowling it full, and he'll just get his action and his rhythm and his mentality right for the big occasion. I do think he'll blow quite a few teams away.
Do you think the Duke's going to play an issue?
Well,
the Duke,
the ball.
No, I don't. I think the tail end will get blown away by Stark. He's the best at bowling at tail enders. I think he's fantastic. Let me just get this thing on Jimmy straight, because you tightly... no, seriously, because what they're doing here, what I'm saying, he's not the best bowler I've ever seen. I'm saying he's the best new bowler. That first 4 or 5 overs, if I could have someone to bat bowl for my life, I'd say Jimmy Anderson. There you go, mate. Ball on that first, like he did at Headingley that morning. Oh, Jimmy, give Jimmy the ball. But now, Dale Steyn, if we're talking now present bowlers... Over 5 days on a flat pitch, I'd rather have Dale Steyn bowling for my life than Jimmy Anderson.
Some blokes in white coats at the door were just wondering what was happening.
There's a difference between a new bowler and someone bowling over a test match. You should have seen his face when you said that.
Really?
Coming out of his ears.
Let's look at some key matchups. Cook and Clark as the 2 skippers and the 2 key batsmen. Who has the better summer, Michael, in short?
Well, I think Clark's with McCullum as the best captains in the world. I just think they see the game quicker than any other captains. I think they know how to play the kind of psychology cards. I think they know how to play the game fast when it's going their way, when to just drag it back a little bit. I think he's learning how to use line really well. And on flat wickets, and they are going to be flat and they're going to be dry, your captain's got to be very, very good at dealing with spin. Okay. You've got to know exactly when to put the spinner on, when to attack with spin, when to just sit back with the spin. And I think in terms of captaincy, I think Clark's the better captain. Okay. In terms of batting, I think Cook will have a tremendous summer batting.
Speaking of spin, here's perhaps some will say a mismatch in terms of a match-up, Marcus. English spin versus the Aussie batsmen, such as England have spinning options in either Rashid or Moeen Ali. Is that a mismatch? Well,
my worry for Moeen and the England cricket team is I just think it's going to keep being a distraction for him. It's always going to be talked about in the media about Moeen, because he's not an out-and-out spinner. This guy's always been a batsman that's been a part-time spinner and has found himself now batting well down the order. He's in there as a spin bowler, so there's always going to be that distraction. You look at his figures; he's actually done okay. I think he averages about 33 with the ball in Test cricket, and that's good as a frontline spinner. But we know the Aussies are going to absolutely take. As soon as he comes on, doesn't matter what conditions, what time of the game, they'll be running at him.
They'll take guard halfway down.
They did it to Swanee. They did it to Treadwell. Yep. I mean, they did it to all the off-spinners. I mean, Buff just doesn't think off-spinners should be bowling.
Right.
And
dismissed.
It will happen.
And that's going to put Cook under a lot of pressure.
Okay. Yep.
You're talking if the ball stops swinging, Anderson doesn't get the ball to swing, Broad's Wood leaking a few, and you haven't got a spinner that can play a role. It's going to be tough on Cook.
Kevin, what about the wicket keepers? Butler and Haddin. Who has the better summer?
I mean, I agree with Vaughan. Jos, I absolutely love. I've loved him since he came into the side. I loved him before he came into the side. I just love the way that he plays the game. Brad Haddin is tried and tested. He's a tough cricketer. He's going to be very vocal behind the stumps. Jos is a quiet lad, goes about his business, does the business, and he will be a superstar.
Yeah.
In terms of keeping, I think it's tough for a foreign keeper to come and play against the Duke Bulls. I know a lot of the keepers that come, even the English keepers here in the UK, they struggle, especially at Lords with the wobble. They're always talking about the wobble. So I reckon I'm going to go 50-50 on it, but I do think that if I was going to edge in anyone's favour, I'd go Butler's favour. Just fresh, full of energy, exciting, just the way that he plays is good. I know that Haddon will counter-attack, and that's the way he plays his cricket, and he'll be very vocal from behind the stumps, but I'm a big Butler fan, big.
Good. Excellent chat so far, boys. Thank you very much. But there's lots more to come. Hope you're enjoying it at home. As I said at the start of the show, and as last week, lots of you have got in touch to put your questions to the panel. So let's get a few of those on board, shall we? First of all, Goughy, Scott McNair's been in touch to ask, with 17 tests in 10 months, I think by calculation, are England's players likely to become exhausted over the next few months?
Well, as speaking as a bowler, because I don't know what it's like as a batsman mentally fatigued, I'm talking about body. It can become an issue. But I think we've got some good bowlers who might be given an opportunity. We've got Anderson. We've got to use him. This Ashes series is massive. And I know now he wants to get to 500 test wickets and go, and I think he'll go on and get 550. I really do. I think he's got at least a couple of years in him. But we'll know more after this summer. If he has a bad series, it might be that time. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult one. Broad will definitely have to be monitored. But we've got some good fast bowlers. We've got Woods. He looks as though he could run through a brick wall. Stokes looks a man mountain. He looks powerful. This Overton at Somerset is taking wickets. I know Surrey have got a good couple of fast bowlers if they can stay fit and strong. So
they might need to rotate in order to
I think
maintain.
And there's Footy at Derby. You only have to look at the wickets he takes. At some point, he's got to get recognition at the highest level. We've got plenty of fast bowlers.
Might come down to if England can find a spinner to hold an end.
Right.
And that's away from the quick.
The pace
because if you've got a spinner that bowls your overs, the seamers don't have to bowl as many.
Right.
Yeah. Now, if the spinner's being smashed out the park or not being able to hold an end, not bowling the overs that he should, the likes of Anderson, Broad and co will have to bowl probably 20% more than they would do in every game, and that certainly will take it.
Who's your spinner then? Who's your spinner? Who's your spinner for this test?
Rashid.
Yeah.
I'll definitely go Rashid.
Right, so you're all going for a spinner who could go around the park. So what you've just said, all of you there, but we need to keep it tight because Wood and Stokes could go around the park. We're now picking a leggy who could go around the park.
We said there'll be an issue on the fast bowlers if the spinner goes
and I think he will, so I'm going Batty.
Yeah.
Who? Okay.
Gareth Batty.
We'll
He's
come
the best
back to
spinner.
that.
You speak to coaches, the best spinner in the country by a mile.
You've got Joe Root and Adam Lyth. They can hold an end.
Really
bowled as well
He
as
can't bowl him down an hill.
I mean, he's holding an end.
That'd be like bowling you in a test match for
Look,
25
I'm telling you,
overs.
they haven't got an off spinner that is quality just at the minute.
Gareth Batty, the best one in the country by a mile.
Nah, I love him to bits.
It's an interesting point, but we need to get some more questions in.
Sorry.
Rahul wonders, Vaughan, whether you could promote Root to 3 and Balance to 4. You should have your best batsman, he wonders, at 3, a la Ponting, Dravid, etc.
Yeah, I wouldn't move Root. No. I'd move Bell. I'd move Bell. I think Bell's at that stage now, and he's a wonderful player, but he's the most frustrating player to watch because he loses his mind too quickly. For such a good player, you know, his actual movements are always the same, but his mind thinks differently.
Okay.
You know, he always seems to get out, when he's out of nick, to the trap. You know, he has a 4 slip cord and little outswingers, and he'll just dash it one. You know, the trap's been set, leg slip's been put on the off spinner, trap's been set, he flicks it straight in the hand. So mentally, you know, he is fragile, Ian Bell, and I just think he's played 100 test matches. The best way to say to him, right, come on, come back with us, we trust you, get to number 3, put Balance to 4.
Should have been batting there for the last 2-3 years, Belly.
Okay.
Yep.
Tej Takarkev asks whether those fine upstanding gentlemen at the ECB should not look closer at Ravi Bopara.
In the test side?
Shorter format, I beg your pardon, shorter format.
Oh, in the shorter format,
Yeah.
I'm a big Ravi fan.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get picked in the IPL if you're a rubbish player too. And he was one of the players who actually performed really well. I think he might have played more games than the captain of the ODI side. He brings batting, he brings bowling. He's been one of these players that just hasn't been trusted in the positions for long enough under whichever coach he's played. They've gone from opening the batting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, bowling one game, not bowling another game. Told he's not playing in a series against India last year because he wasn't doing enough when he was the best over the last 18 months in terms of all-rounders numbers. He then plays the whole winter and it got dropped the night before the game against Australia. I mean, who makes these decisions? I don't know. Just ridiculous management And a guy like that, all he needs is an arm around his shoulder, said, right, Ravi, you're going to play now for the next 12 months and I want you to deliver match-winning performances. He'll win matches and he can still win matches for England.
Ridiculous management. Pete Stuffins has been in touch, Marcus, to ask, is aggression the key to beating the Aussies, head to head?
Well, I think we've seen that in world cricket now. Everyone's being aggressive. New Zealand has captured the world of cricket through the World Cup, the way they've played, the way they've come here in the summer. I mean, for the warm-up test matches before in Ashes, it used to be, I would say this respectfully, not a token, but you'd play a couple of tests and then you get to the real deal.
Yeah.
And that first test match, I think, captured the public in England again. You know, everyone was like turning on the TV, talking about Test cricket, talking about the way how well England played and how New Zealand have come. The anticipation for New Zealand to come was fantastic, and I think both teams will see it in the Ashes again.
The Kiwis, I suppose almost uniquely at the moment, said we don't sledge, we don't do any of that. That's not what we're going to do. So with that in mind, there's a question from Stuart Drysdale. Where are the parameters of sledging? Are there any? Should there be anything that's off limits, Goughy?
I think it's very hard when you're telling a bowler to run in, when the frustration counts, especially some batsmen are scoring at 5 and 6 and over. If you beat him or you make him look silly on one delivery, you're going to try and come back because you're trying to change that momentum I keep talking about, whether you're batting or bowling. You're trying to get on top of that batsman. And sometimes you might say something you probably regret. But I would never really, I would say, called a sledger. I tried to be more funny with the odd comment here and there. Swami, some people would call it, but I hated abusing a batsman. I very rarely did it. I got abused on a few occasions, but my side of humour is Steve Waugh to me would always say I was a champagne player on a beer budget. But I used to like that. I thought it was a brilliant line. But that to me made me laugh. It made me feel relaxed at the crease, him sledging me like that. You know what I mean?
I reckon we've just seen 2 test matches as how we'd all love the game to be played. Yeah. It was great cricket, it was aggressive cricket, both teams having a pop, both teams trying to attack. I didn't see one confrontation.
There will be sledging in the series because
as soon as this lot arrive.
Yeah, the Australians sledged. I mean, the New Zealanders were taken to town in that World Cup final. They were. I mean, they went at them from the moment that game started, and that's a tactic that they'll probably use here. The only issue for me is I like sledging. I think it's magnificent. We had that spell where Wahab Riaz was bowling to Shane Watson in Adelaide in the World Cup now. One of the most incredible half an hour of bowling where Wahab was, as a fast bowler in Australia, against Australia. I've never seen it before, where a guy's literally all over an Aussie. And Wahab was saying things, but Damasino, or whoever I think it was Damasino, really got involved too early in that. And, I mean, the whole crowd just wanted to see that really unfold and wanted to see batters, bowlers going at each other. There was that drop catch. I mean, everybody sitting in the commentary box watching the game, everybody was on the game of cricket. And I think that brings a lot to the game. So, I mean, it's cool to play a nice series against people who are your mates and stuff, but I also watch to see a little confrontation. I want Johnson to go at whoever live. I want him to go at him. He's going to go at him. I want Haddon to go at him because I like entertainment.
There's a line like Riaz
not interested
Watson,
in happy series.
There's a fine line. Riaz Watson was brilliant cricket because it wasn't abuse. When you start getting abuse and someone standing from second slip saying, "We want to break your," I'm sorry, that's over the top.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
no one wants abuse.
But when you're talking about a team trying to psychologically outdo a batsman and a fast bowler letting a batsman know with a few short ones and following through and just having a couple of words about, maybe you're not quite playing it so well and there's a man out there waiting for you. Perfect.
Yep.
Absolutely perfect.
When it becomes Samuel abuse, Stokes, that was brilliant.
Absolutely
I thought that was fantastic. Samuel Stokes, that was brilliant. And they're still doing it now.
Yeah.
He gets 100 now, all the England players are doing it. It's brilliant.
Salute.
That's what we do need.
It sounds like you naturally have a feeling for where the line is, and when it's crossed, it's crossed.
Yeah.
Right, let's start to pick the selections for the 2 teams for the Ashes. Now then, Marcus, let's get our teeth into your Aussie 11, because we've talked about your embarrassment of riches. Who gets in and who doesn't?
Well, I've made a couple of changes. I've gone Rogers at the top. I think he's so important in these conditions. Steve Smith, Clark, Sean Marsh has been pretty consistent over the last 12 months. And I've gone Mitch Marsh instead of Watson. Mitch has had a few interesting injury issues over the last couple of years, but I feel he bowls better. He's a better bowling option for the Australian side. And I think you talk about Watson or that number 6 having that counter-attack and positive way of playing cricket. I think Mitch Marsh is a star that's really going to establish himself and play a lot of Test cricket. Haddon, Harris, obviously quality. Lyon has established himself. And I've gone Johnson out, Hazelwood in.
Big call?
Yep.
Cool.
Wait a minute. No Adam Voges?
What Voges? Yeah.
Well, he's played one test. I think the incumbent is Sean Marsh. He's played very well. He hasn't played badly over 12 months after re-establishing himself. So to me, he's put that year of work in. Adam Voges is a great player. But that's the luxury. We've got those bowlers of depth we're talking about. And we've got Adam Voges to come in if required.
I hope you pick that team.
I know. I bet the England out there watching this. Mitchell Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, the flags that we have.
Oh, you're the selector.
The bunting. More bunting for the English. Goughy, let's have a look at yours. He's turned.
Is that Newcastle Air?
Goughy, let's have a look at your England team.
Oh, dear. Goffer selector.
Yeah. Now...
Yep, I've got Alastair Cook. I think it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Adam Live, you can't drop someone. I think it was terrific innings up at Headingley. I'm bringing in Alex Hales. I like the way he goes about his cricket. Gives us a bit of aggression as well around that area. Ian Bell, Joe Root, don't matter. I mean, that could change around the order and which number they're batting. Ben Stokes showed great promise at number 6. I like him. An aggressive cricketer is exactly what we needed. With Jos Butler there, could take the game away from the opposition, batting at 7. Stuart Broad might be a bit high for him, but let's back him, number 8.
You just said he's not going to go. You put him in at 8. You got him in at 8.
Mark Wood, Gareth Batty and James Anderson. I believe you've got 7 batsmen there who will all get runs. Shouldn't matter what bowlers, but you don't start picking a bowling lineup just because they can bat against Australia.
Got World Player of the Year 2 Test matches ago.
Yeah.
Had 2 bad games.
My choice.
50
I'm a selector. It's my turn. Well, let's wait till we get your team. I'm going for some fresh. I'm going Hales in at number 3. Balance to go with Live, Cook and Balance are the top 3. All left-handers. Didn't fancy it. I went for a change. Went someone who might be able to up the tempo, and that's where I've gone for Hales. He's in form, and I really like the way he goes about his cricket.
I hope Gareth Batty's watching. He'll be delighted.
I know.
Yeah,
he's a terrific player. He's a
Don't
terrific
take him away
player
from Surrey. He's done a great job with
He's
the boys.
a terrific player.
Okay, let's have a look at your 11.
Yep, I've got a few in there. A couple of changes. Obviously, Cookie, Live, Bell, Roy. I've gone in. I've dropped Balance out the side. I've taken Balance out because I just haven't been impressed with the way that he's played his cricket over the last 6 months. And he might have got this World Player of the Year award, but just at number 3, you cannot have a number 3 who doesn't get his right foot outside the popping crease. You just cannot have that. And the quality of bowlers that the Australians are going to bring to the country in the next couple of weeks, you can't have that. You need somebody like Bell, 110 test matches, being positive, driving, pulling, cutting, played beautifully against him a few years ago. Jason Roy is a positive player. Jason Roy is a guy who can go out there and whack the ball. Jason Roy, Alex Hales, I'm not too fussed. Roy's my buddy. Roy gets the nod. Root, obviously, Star. Stokes. Another Star. Star was born in Perth, and he hasn't been treated well. I just hope over the next 12 months, 14 months, whenever it is, he just gets given the go-ahead. Jos, superstar. Adil, definitely for Rashid, for Moen, purely because he's a leg spinner. Takes the ball away from the bat, bowls are googly, you can't place it, and I think an off-spinner the Aussies are just going to nail. I've dropped Broad because I don't think Broad's at his best. I don't think Broad can bat at the moment.
I thought you were saying at the start of the show that for England to be successful, Broad has to be successful.
Yeah, I did say that.
But he's not in your team. How can he be successful? He's not
no, but at the moment he's not. He's not. He's not playing good cricket at the moment, and I don't think that he warrants a place in that side. He can't. And what Jordan brings to the party too is a second slip or a third slip. We've been suffering with our catches over the last series and a bit.
We're not that good where we can pick a bowler just because he's good at slip.
Well, he's a bowler. He bowls late 80s. He bats.
One-day cricketer, Chris Jordan. Yeah. I don't think he's a test bowler. He's like, not for me.
You're not concerned. He's for me. He's the next year or so.
Yeah,
he's the one that they go to.
2 years' time, he might have reached that.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready for an Ashes series.
Interestingly, none of you agree with any of the others, which is the nature of sport and certainly cricket. Michael, let's have a look at yours. What have you gone for?
There you go. Cook, Live, Bell to 3, so that's the move I've made. Bell ahead of Balance and keeping Balance. You know, at number 4, I think he'll be better suited away from that new ball. Root and Stokes, Butler, Rashid's in ahead of Moeen Ali. That was kind of my slash, just to see how Rash. I saw enough the other day to suggest that he will cause a bit of panic, particularly getting rid of the tail. I think England have really struggled to clean out the tail of a lot of the opposing teams over the last few years. I think Adil Rashid will do that. Wood, Broad, Anderson, as it's been for the last 2 or 3 games. You know, I also would like to see a little bit of a flexi order if they do start well, of potentially moving someone like Butler up the order to make the use of the last 20-odd overs of the first new ball. I really do think in English conditions that second new ball is so important. And it can be the moment, like against New Zealand, where England play so well. They were 239 for two at the first new ball. All of a sudden, take the second new ball, bang, 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 all out for 320, 330. So I do think that Test cricket, not just the way I play this year, but I think Test cricket will go down a format that you'll have stage players at certain times of the innings. If the ball gets a little bit soft from 50 to 80, you have to attack it. You have to get 150 in that period.
But that's what these have been doing for years.
Yeah.
Australia playing stages. They go after someone with a new ball, then they'll say, well, just sit in a little bit, and then some bowler will come on and say, right, we're going to attack here for 5, 6 overs.
And then they go.
That's what they've been doing it for years, playing
You learn from the best, don't you? You learn from take what's good and try and improve on it. Let's have some predictions then. Scores?
I said at the start,
2-1.
I said 2-1, yep.
2-1 Aussies.
2-1, yeah, 2-1, yep. 2-1 Aussies.
Marcus?
3-1.
3-1, I assume Aussies, rather than your adopted homeland. You're so-and-so. Vaughan?
I hate to say it, 3-1. Australia.
Going with him, 3-1 Australia. Goughy, any chance?
5-0 England.
There you go. Have that good with batting.
Batty with 57 wickets. With average of 60.
3-1 Australia.
And just before we go, Kevin, obviously with everything that's gone on in the last few weeks,
Yeah.
you will obviously, I assume, to what extent possible, watch this. As a fan, you remain a fan of the England team and English cricket. You'll be rooting for the boys?
Always been a fan. And there's so much good stuff in that side now. There's so many talented players there that I want them to do well. I want them to be successful. I hate seeing England lose. I hate seeing what's happened to England over the last 18 months. It's not been nice. I'm a winner. I like seeing winning.
Good man. Thank you very much, fellas, for the chat. Absolutely fascinating stuff. We hope that the cricket's half as good as the conversation. There's lots to look forward to this Ashes summer. Thank you very much for getting in touch with all of your questions. If you haven't done already, you can go to Breathe Sports website to download the app, or you can obviously get that from the App Store, and that's how you get involved with the ongoing conversation from day to day, week to week, and month to month as the summer and the Ashes series unfolds. Thanks very much for watching tonight. Hope you've enjoyed it, and hope you enjoy this coming summer. See you soon.